The Valari had been watching Earth for 3,000 years. They were a proud species, tall and thin with silver skin that changed color with their emotions. Their technology was far beyond anything humans had ever dreamed of. Their ships could bend light around themselves and become completely invisible. Their sensors could read a human heartbeat from orbit. Their computers could translate every language on Earth in seconds. Commander Thales stood on the bridge of his observation vessel, the Silent Wind, and looked down at the blue planet below. He had spent 40 years studying these strange creatures called humans. He knew their history, their wars, their hopes, and their fears. He knew them better than they knew themselves. "Report," he said to his second officer, a young Valari named Korin. Korin pulled up the daily observation logs on the holographic display. "Nothing unusual, Commander. The humans continue their normal activities. Their politicians argue. Their scientists experiment. Their soldiers train. They remain completely unaware of our presence." Thales nodded with satisfaction. This was how it had always been. The Valari were the greatest observers in the galaxy. They had watched 100 primitive worlds rise and fall. They studied these young species, learned their weaknesses, and when the time was right, they would make contact on their own terms. The primitives never knew they were being watched until it was too late. "And their technology?" Thales asked. "Advancing slowly," Karim replied. "They have launched a few more satellites, built some new telescopes. Nothing that can detect us. Their radar passes through our ships like we are not even here. Their telescopes see only the stars behind us. We remain invisible." Thales allowed himself a small smile. The humans were clever, he admitted. They had split the atom and walked on their moon. They had built machines that could think and networks that connected their entire world. But they were still children compared to the Valari. They looked up at the stars with wonder and hope, never knowing that something was looking back. "Continue standard observation," Thales ordered. "I want full reports on their military movements and their space programs. The Council will want updates." But far below, in a small underground office in Colorado Springs, something was happening that would change everything. Lieutenant Grace Park rubbed her tired eyes and looked at her computer screen for the 100th time that night. She was not supposed to be here. Her shift had ended 6 hours ago. But something was bothering her, and she could not let it go. Park was not like other analysts. She did not just look at what the sensors detected. She looked at what they did not detect. She studied the gaps, the silences, the empty spaces where something should have been but was not. And tonight, she had found something very strange. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered to herself. On her screen was a map of the night sky, covered with dots representing stars and galaxies. But there were also tiny black spots scattered across the image. Places where the cosmic background radiation, the ancient light left over from the birth of the universe, simply disappeared. Something was blocking it. Something that was not supposed to be there. Park had checked her equipment 3 times. She had run the data through every filter she knew. The results were always the same. There were objects in Earth's orbit that were absorbing radiation and leaving shadows against the backdrop of space. Invisible objects. Invisible, but not quite invisible enough. The door to her office opened, and Captain David Kim walked in with 2 cups of coffee. He was her superior officer, a calm and patient man who had learned to trust Park's strange instincts. "You're still here," he said. It was not a question. "I found something," Park replied. She took the coffee without looking away from her screen. "Look at this." Kim leaned over her shoulder and studied the image. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then, Park pointed at one of the black spots, and he understood. "That's not natural," he said slowly. "No, it's not. And look at this." Park pulled up another image, then another. I went back through our archives. These shadows have been appearing in our data for decades. We just never noticed because we were looking for signals, not silences. Kim felt a cold feeling in his stomach. What are you saying? Park finally looked up at him. Her eyes were serious and afraid, but also excited. I'm saying something is up there, Captain. Something invisible. And it's been watching us for a very long time. Kim stared at the screen for a long moment. His mind raced through the possibilities. Satellites? No, satellites did not behave like this. Space debris? Impossible. This was something else. Something that did not want to be seen. We need to report this, he said finally. To who? Park asked. Who do we tell that we might have invisible aliens in orbit? They'll think we're crazy. Kim shook his head. There are people whose job is to think about exactly this kind of thing. People who won't think we're crazy. He pulled out his phone and made a call that would change the course of human history. 3 hours later, Park found herself in a conference room with men and women in expensive suits and military uniforms. They listened to her presentation in complete silence. They asked questions that showed they understood exactly what she was saying. And when she finished, they did not laugh or dismiss her. Instead, they shared a look among themselves. A look that told Park she had stumbled onto something that was already known, already feared, already prepared for. Lieutenant Park, said a gray-haired general at the head of the table. What you have discovered is classified at the highest level. You are now part of something much bigger than you know. Park swallowed hard. What do you mean, sir? The general stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars were shining in the dark Colorado sky. Somewhere up there, invisible watchers floated in silence, confident in their secrecy. We have suspected for decades that we are not alone, the general said. We have been preparing, waiting, building things that no one knows about. Things that can see what others believe cannot be seen. He turned back to Park with a grim smile. Welcome to the Exo-Threat Division, Lieutenant. It's time to show our visitors that humans are not as blind as they think. And high above Earth, Commander Thalas continued his observations, never knowing that the primitives below had just taken the first step toward a confrontation that would shake the galaxy to its core. 6 months had passed since Grace Park discovered the shadows in the sky. In that time, her life had changed completely. She no longer worked in a small underground office. Now she worked in a massive facility hidden beneath the Nevada desert. Surrounded by the brightest minds on Earth, the Exo-Threat Division was not new. It had existed in secret for 50 years, funded by black budgets and hidden from the public eye. Its mission was simple: prepare humanity for the day when they would discover they were not alone in the universe. That day had finally come. Dr. Michael Lee was the head of the division. He was a small man with round glasses and a quiet voice, but his mind was sharper than anyone Park had ever met. He had spent his entire career studying the possibility of alien contact, and now his theories were being proven right. The key to understanding our visitors, Lee explained during one of his briefings, is understanding what they think of us. They believe we are primitive. They believe our technology is centuries behind theirs. And most importantly, they believe their cloaking systems make them completely invisible. He pulled up a holographic display showing a Volari ship. The image was blurry but unmistakable. A long, curved vessel that looked like a silver fish swimming through the darkness of space. This is what they look like, Lee continued. We captured this image using quantum resonance imaging, a technology we developed 30 years ago and never revealed to the public. The Volari have been scanning our scientific publications, our patents, our research papers. They think they know exactly what we can and cannot do. But they only know what we have shown them. Captain David Kim raised his hand. So we've been hiding our true capabilities? Lee smiled. For decades. Every major government on Earth has been doing the same thing. We share our basic research openly, but our most advanced projects remain completely secret. The Valari think our best sensors are radio telescopes and infrared satellites. They have no idea about quantum detection, neutrino mapping, or gravitational wave analysis. Park leaned forward in her seat. So we can see them. Can we do anything else? That brings me to the second part of our advantage, Lee said. He changed the display to show a series of weapon systems that looked like something from a science fiction movie. We have been building in secret. Orbital defense platforms disguised as communication satellites. Energy weapons hidden inside asteroid mining stations. Ships that officially do not exist. The room fell silent as the officers absorbed this information. For generations, humanity had looked up at the stars and felt small and alone. Now they were learning that their governments had been preparing for this moment all along. General Robert Hayes stood up. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face that had seen many battles. The question now is what we do with this advantage. We could continue to hide. Let the Valari keep watching while we build our strength. Or we could act. What kind of action? Kim asked. Hayes looked around the room. We reveal ourselves. We show them that we know they are there. We do it on our terms, at a time and place of our choosing. Ambassador Rachel Torres, the civilian representative on the council, shook her head. That's incredibly risky. We don't know how they'll react. They might see it as a threat and attack. They might, Hayes agreed. But consider the alternative. Right now, they are collecting information on us. They are learning our weaknesses, mapping our defenses, studying our societies. Every day we wait, they learn more. If we act now, while they still underestimate us, we have the element of surprise. Lee nodded slowly. There's something else to consider. The Valari are not the only watchers out there. Our deep space sensors have detected at least 12 other species observing Earth from various distances. If we want to establish ourselves as equals in this galaxy, we need to send a message. Not just to the Valari, but to everyone who is watching. Park thought about this. She remembered all the stories she had heard as a child. Tales of lights in the sky, of strange visitors, of people who claimed to have been taken and returned. Everyone had laughed at those stories. But now she knew the truth. Humanity had been under observation for thousands of years, treated like animals in a zoo. The thought made her angry. I think we should do it, she said. Everyone turned to look at her. Sorry, I know I'm just a lieutenant. But we've spent our whole history wondering if we were alone. We built religions and philosophies around that question. And now we know the answer. We're not alone. We never were. Someone has been watching us, studying us, treating us like specimens. I think it's time to look back. Hayes smiled at her. Lieutenant Park discovered them. I think her opinion matters quite a bit. Over the next 3 months, the plan took shape. It was called Operation Mirror, and it was the most complex secret operation in human history. The first step was public. Every major space agency on Earth announced a new initiative to search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They built new telescopes, launched new satellites, and broadcast messages into space. They made a big show of humanity reaching out to the cosmos, hoping to find intelligent life. It was all a performance. The real purpose was to give the Valari a reason to come closer. They won't be able to resist, Lee predicted. For 3,000 years, they've watched humanity search for them without success. Now we're making a big, public effort. They'll want to observe our reactions when we inevitably fail. They'll move their ships closer to get better data. And they did. Just as Lee predicted, the Valari observation vessels drifted closer to Earth, settling into lower orbits where they could monitor the human search efforts more closely. They had no idea they were swimming straight into a trap. Lieutenant Park, now promoted to captain, was given command of the detection center. She would be the one to initiate contact when the moment came. She spent her days watching the Volari ships move through Earth's orbit like fish in a tank, completely unaware that the glass walls could see them perfectly. Almost ready, Lee told her one evening. We have targeting solutions on 17 Volari vessels. Our weapons are charged and hidden. All the world's governments are briefed and prepared. All we need is your signal. Park nodded, her heart pounding. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, humanity would stop being the watched and start being the watchers. She looked up at the night sky through the facility's skylight. Somewhere up there, Commander Thalys was probably reviewing his observation logs, confident that his mission was proceeding perfectly. He was about to learn that humans were full of surprises. Commander Thalys was having a good day. The humans below were putting on quite a show. Their telescopes were pointing in every direction. Their radio dishes were broadcasting messages into the void, and their scientists were giving excited interviews of the search for alien life. It was amusing to watch. They are looking in all the wrong places, Curran laughed from his station. They are scanning distant stars while we float right above their heads. The primitives have no idea. Dallas nodded with satisfaction. Record everything. The Council will enjoy seeing how these humans search for what they cannot find. It will be a useful study in primitive psychology. The silent wind had moved closer to Earth than ever before. They were now in a low orbit, close enough to pick up television broadcasts and cellular phone signals. The Volari cloaking technology continued to work perfectly. No radar detected them. No telescope spotted them. They were invisible, as they had always been. Commander, said the communications officer, the humans are broadcasting another message into space. Would you like to hear it? Play it, Dallas ordered. The speakers crackled, and a human voice filled the bridge. It was speaking in English, one of the dominant human languages. This is Earth calling. If anyone is out there, we want to make contact. We come in peace. Please respond. The Volari crew laughed. It was the same message the humans had been sending for decades, ever since they invented radio. They shouted into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. They never realized that someone had been listening all along. Talus was about to order his crew back to their regular duties when something strange happened. The holographic display on his console flickered. Then the lights on the bridge dimmed for just a moment. And then every screen on the ship suddenly showed the same image. A human face dot. It was a young woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She was wearing a military uniform that Thalys did not recognize. And she was smiling. Hello, Commander Thalys, she said in perfect Volari. My name is Captain Grace Park. We need to talk. For a long moment, no one on the bridge could move or speak. Thalys felt his silver skin turn pale blue with shock. This was impossible. Completely impossible. The humans could not see them. The humans could not know his name. The humans could not speak his language. How are you doing this? He demanded. The same way you have been watching us, Park replied calmly. Technology. The difference is, we decided it was time to stop hiding ours. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Cohen's voice was shaking as he reported. Commander, we are being targeted. Multiple weapons logs from 17 different sources. Orbital platforms, surface installations, and ships, Commander. Human ships. They were hidden behind the moon. Thalys felt his world crumbling around him. This could not be happening. The humans were primitive. Their technology was centuries behind the Volari. They should not be able to see through cloaking fields or lock weapons on invisible targets or build secret fleets. You are making a mistake, Thalys said, trying to keep his voice steady. We are not your enemies. We have been observing your world peacefully for thousands of years. Park's smile faded. Peacefully. Is that what you call it? We found your records, Commander. We know about the abductions, the genetic experiments, the psychological studies conducted on unwilling subjects. We know that you have been treating our people like laboratory animals for 3,000 years. Those were scientific studies, Talus protested. We meant no harm. We were simply gathering data on your species. Without our knowledge. Without our consent. Park leaned closer to the camera, and her eyes were hard. How would you feel if someone did that to your people, Commander? Talus had no answer. In 3,000 years of observation, no primitive species had ever asked him that question. They had never known enough to ask, "What do you want?" He finally said, "First, I want you to understand something. We've known about you for a very long time. Not 3,000 years, but long enough. We saw the shadows your ships left against the stars. We found the traces of your activities on our world. We collected the stories of people who encountered your kind. And we prepared." She paused to let her words sink in. "We built sensors that can see through your cloaking fields. We developed weapons that can target your ships. We constructed a fleet in secret, hidden in places your observers never thought to look. And we did all of this while pretending to be the primitive species you believed us to be." Corin whispered in horror. "They were playing us. All these years, they were playing us." Park heard him and nodded. "Yes, we were. The question now is what happens next." Talus looked at the weapons targeting his ship. He looked at the hidden human fleet emerging from behind the moon. Vessels that should not exist according to every Valari projection. He looked at his crew, who were staring at him with fear in their eyes. He had two choices. He could fight, and his ship would be destroyed in seconds. Or he could surrender and face the consequences of 3,000 years of deception. "What are your terms?" he asked. Park's expression softened slightly. "Power down your weapons and shields. Transmit a message to your fleet, ordering them to do the same. Then we will escort you to a meeting point where representatives of our governments will discuss the future of our relationship. And if I refuse, then you will discover exactly how advanced human weapons technology really is. But I hope it won't come to that, Commander. Despite everything your people have done to us, we would prefer to talk rather than fight." Talus stood in silence for a long moment. Around him, his crew waited for his decision. Behind him, 3,000 years of Valari superiority crumbled into dust. "Stand down," he ordered quietly. "Power down all weapons and shields. Transmit the surrender signal to the fleet." Corin stared at him. "Commander, we cannot just surrender to primitives." Talus turned to face his young officer. "Look at your screens, Corin. Look at the weapons pointed at us. Look at the ships that we never detected. These are not primitives. They never were. We just refuse to see it." He turned back to Park's image on the screen. "We accept your terms, Captain. We will come peacefully." Park nodded. "A wise choice, Commander. Welcome to humanity's first real conversation with the stars. I hope it goes better than the last 3,000 years." As the silent wind powered down and prepared to be escorted to the meeting point, Talus felt something he had never experienced before: respect and fear for a species that had been watching back all along. The space station had been built in just 3 months. It floated at a special point in space where the gravity of Earth and the Moon balanced each other. A place called L2. The station was designed to be neutral ground. A place where humans and Valari could meet without either side feeling threatened. Ambassador Rachel Torres looked out the window of her quarters at the stars beyond. In a few hours, she would sit across a table from beings who had been watching her species for 3,000 years. The thought was terrifying. It was also exciting. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she said. Dr. Michael Lay entered, carrying a tablet filled with data. The Valari delegation has arrived. High Counselor Marin is leading them personally. She's one of the most powerful figures in their government. Torres nodded. What do we know about her? Not much. She's old, even by Valari standards. She's been involved in their observation programs for centuries. According to our intelligence, she was against the decision to study Earth so closely. She thought humans were too unpredictable. Smart woman, Torres said with a small smile. At least one of them saw us clearly. The conference room was large and circular, with a long table in the center and screens on every wall. The human delegation sat on one side. Ambassador Torres, Dr. Lee, General Hayes, and Captain Park. The Valari sat on the other side. High Counselor Marin and 3 advisors whose names Torres could not pronounce. Marin was tall and thin like all Valari, with silver skin that shifted to a pale blue whenever she was troubled. Her eyes were large and dark, and they studied the humans with obvious curiosity. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Torres began. I know this situation is difficult for both our peoples. Marin inclined her head. Indeed, in 3,000 years of observing younger species, we have never been detected. We have certainly never been captured. You have given my people much to think about. Let's start with the basics, Torres said. We want to understand why you were watching us. What was the purpose of your observation? Marin glanced at her advisors before answering. The Valari Collective is ancient. We achieved space travel when your ancestors were still learning to make fire. In all that time, we have encountered hundreds of intelligent species. Some became our allies. Some became our enemies. Most destroyed themselves before they ever reached the stars. She paused, and her skin flickered with colors Torres could not interpret. We learned that young species are dangerous. Not to us, but to themselves. They develop technology faster than wisdom. They build weapons before they build peace. So we began watching, studying, learning about each new species before deciding whether to make contact. Dr. Lee leaned forward. And what did you decide about humans? Marin's expression was unreadable. We had not decided. Your species is complicated. You are capable of great kindness and terrible cruelty, often at the same time. You create beautiful art and horrible weapons. You dream of peace while you prepare for war. We could not determine whether you would become a friend or a threat to the galaxy. So you kept watching, Torres said, and taking samples, and conducting experiments. Marin's skin turned a deep blue. Those activities were mistakes, the result of individual researchers who exceeded their authority. When we discovered what was happening, we tried to stop it. But the damage was done. General Hayes spoke for the first time. Mistakes that continued for centuries. Mistakes that affected thousands of our people. You'll forgive us if we find that explanation difficult to accept. The room fell silent. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Torres raised her hand to calm the situation. We're not here to argue about the past. We're here to discuss the future. The question is, where do we go from here? She pulled up a document on the main screen. We have prepared a list of demands. First, complete disclosure of all Valari activities on Earth. Every observation, every experiment, every intervention. We want access to your records. Marin nodded slowly. That can be arranged. Second, reparations. Your people took things from us without permission. We want compensation in the form of technology exchange. Medical knowledge, energy systems, space travel capabilities. This time Marin hesitated. That is a significant request. Some of our technology could be dangerous in the wrong hands. We already built sensors that see through your cloaking and weapons that can target your ships, Park interjected. I think we've proven we can handle advanced technology. Marin looked at the young captain with something like respect. You are the one who discovered us, the one who saw the shadows in the stars. Yes, my people have a saying. The most dangerous creature is not the strongest or the fastest, but the one that watches without being seen. It appears humans understand this truth as well as we do. She turned back to Torres. We will share some technology. Not everything, but enough to demonstrate our good faith. What else? Third and most important, Torres said. A binding treaty recognizing human sovereignty over our solar system. No more observation without consent. No more interference in our affairs. You treat us as equals, not as subjects of study. Marin was quiet for a long moment. Her advisors whispered to her in their own language, their voices too low for the translation devices to pick up. Finally, she spoke. Ambassador Torres, you must understand something. The Valari are not the only observers in this galaxy. There are many species who watch young worlds, and not all of them are as patient or as careful as we try to be. If we grant you this sovereignty, we cannot protect you from them. Torres smiled. High Counselor, we spent 3,000 years under observation without protection. We watched your ships fly through our skies while our children pointed at lights they couldn't explain. We found traces of your presence in our history, our legends, our nightmares. And we survived. We adapted. We learned. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. We don't need your protection. We never did. What we need is respect. Recognition that we are not specimens to be studied, but people with our own right to exist and grow and make mistakes and learn from them. She turned back to face Marin. Can you give us that? The High Counselor sat in silence for what felt like hours. Then, slowly, her skin shifted from blue to a soft golden color that Torres had never seen before. Yes, Marin said finally. We can give you that. In 3,000 years, no species has ever surprised us the way you have. Perhaps it is time we stopped watching and started listening. She stood and extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. On behalf of the Valari Collective, I agree to your terms. May this be the beginning of a new relationship between our peoples. Torres took her hand and shook it firmly. May it be better than the last 3,000 years, she replied. And somewhere in the station, Captain Grace, Park smiled. The trap had worked perfectly. Now came the hard part, building a future among the stars. 1 year had passed since the day humanity revealed itself to the galaxy. It had been a year of change, of challenge, and of wonder. Nothing would ever be the same again. Captain Grace Park stood on the observation deck of the UNSS Vigilance, humanity's first true interstellar vessel. The ship was beautiful, a perfect blend of human engineering and Valari technology. It was sleek and silver, with engines that could bend space itself and carry them to distant stars in days instead of centuries. Behind her, Earth hung in the darkness like a blue jewel. Her home, the world she had sworn to protect. She thought about all the people down there, going about their daily lives, knowing now that they were not alone in the universe. The news had changed everything. When the governments finally revealed the truth about the Valari, there had been panic at first. People had been afraid, angry, confused. But slowly, that fear had turned into something else. Pride, determination, a new sense of purpose. Humanity had been watched for 3,000 years. They had been studied like insects under a glass. And they had survived. They had fought back. They had earned their place among the stars. Dr. Michael Lee walked up beside her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Park, and together they looked out at the infinite darkness. The big day tomorrow, Lee said quietly. Park nodded. Tomorrow, the Vigilance would leave Earth's solar system for the first time. They would travel to the Valari homeworld, the first human ambassadors to visit an alien civilization. It was a historic moment, The beginning of a new chapter in human history. Are you nervous? Lee asked. Terrified, Park admitted. But excited too. All my life, I looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Now I'm going to find out. Lee smiled. You know, when you first came to me with those shadow images, I thought you were crazy. Invisible alien ships in Earth orbit? It sounded like something from a bad science fiction movie. And now? Now I think you might be the most important person in human history. You saw what no one else could see. You started something that changed everything. Park shook her head. I just pointed at the shadows. Other people did the hard work. General Hayes, Ambassador Torres, all the scientists and engineers who built our secret fleet. I was just one small piece of a very big puzzle. That's what makes you a good leader, Lee said. You understand that no one changes history alone. The door behind them opened and Commander Thalys walked in. It still felt strange to see a Valari walking freely on a human ship, but things had changed a lot in the past year. Thalys had become something of a liaison between the two species, helping to bridge the gap between their cultures. Captain Park, he said, inclining his head in respect. The crew's ready for final inspections. We can depart on schedule tomorrow morning. Thank you, Commander, Park replied. She still found it hard to be formal with the Valari officer. A year ago, she had exposed his secret mission and forced his surrender. Now they worked together. The universe was strange that way. Thalys hesitated, then spoke again. Captain, may I say something personal? Of course. The Valari silver skin shifted to a thoughtful purple. When he first appeared on my view screen that day, I felt many things. Shock, fear, anger, but most of all, I felt shame. For 3,000 years, my people had watched yours without respect, without understanding. We thought we knew everything about you, but we knew nothing. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Your species taught us something important, Captain. You taught us that the creatures we observe from above are not lesser beings to be studied. They are equals who simply have not been given the chance to prove themselves. I do not know if my people have truly learned this lesson, but I have. Park was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and put her hand on the Valari's shoulder. Commander, we were both doing our jobs. You were ordered to watch us. I was trained to find threats. Neither of us chose the situation we were in. What matters is what we do now. Thalys nodded slowly. What we do now? Yes, that is what matters. The next morning, the Vigilance departed Earth orbit. Thousands of people watched from the surface as the silver ship engaged its engines and vanished into the darkness. It was the first time a human vessel had left the solar system under its own power. It would not be the last. On the bridge, Captain Park sat in the command chair and watched the stars streak past on the view screen. Beside her stood her senior officers, Dr. Lee as Chief Science Officer, Commander Thalys as Cultural Advisor, and Lieutenant David Kim, newly promoted, as Tactical Officer. Captain, Kim reported, we are receiving transmissions from multiple sources. The Valari are not the only ones who noticed our departure. Park smiled. I expected that. Put it on the main screen. The view screen changed to show a map of the galaxy, dotted with hundreds of colored points. Each point represented a signal from an alien species that had been watching Earth. Some were curious. Some were afraid. A few seemed almost excited. The Valari have informed the other observer species that humanity is now aware of their presence, Lee explained. They're trying to figure out how to respond. And how will we respond? Kim asked. Park stood and walked to the view screen. She looked at all those watching eyes scattered across the galaxy, all those species who had thought humans were too primitive to notice them. We will do what we've always done, she said. We will explore. We will learn. We will grow. And we will make sure that every species in this galaxy understands one simple truth. She turned to face her crew, her eyes bright with determination. Humans are not specimens to be studied. We are not primitives to be pitied. We are explorers, dreamers, fighters. We looked up at the stars for thousands of years and wondered if anyone was looking back. Now we know the answer. She smiled, and in that smile was the pride of an entire species. Now it's our turn to look back. The Vigilance continued its journey into the unknown, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of 8 billion people. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among millions. But it was not just any point of light. It was home. And the humans who lived there had proven something that would echo through the galaxy for millennia to come. They had been watched. They had been studied. They had been underestimated. And they had shown the universe that those who watch from the shadows should never forget one important thing. Sometimes the shadows watch back.